Good evening, and it's a great pleasure to be here tonight as we try to commemorate and piece together probably one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult year in our collective lifetimes. My name is Norman Blumenthal, Dr. Norman Blumenthal. I am the Director of Trauma, Bereavement, and Crisis Response for OL Children's Home and Family Services. And I'm going to try to bring my about 25 years experience of working in the area of loss, of trauma, and human difficulties. I think there are two expressions in the English language that really have no place when we talk about grief and loss and trauma. One of them is, quote unquote, being strong, and the other one is getting over it. I think particularly in the Orthodox Jewish community, we have this notion that strength means stoicism. So often I will hear people say, oh, the person was so strong he never cried. I remember somebody once telling me, I spoke about my mother's experiences as a survivor of 7 concentration camps and how that impacted on her. And someone came up to me afterward and said, my mother went through all the camps and lost everybody, and she was always besimcha, she was always happy. Maybe it's true. I don't know if anybody would make something like that up, but I don't know how to relate to that. There are experiences in life that are difficult and they cause us pain. And being in touch with our emotions and being in pain is not a sign of weakness. And if we need no better proof, we can look at the Chumash, we can learn about our avos and imahos, our patriarchs and matriarchs, who had the full range of emotions, and we're only a fraction of who they are. But they cried, they were scared. When Sarah died, Avram Avinu, it says, Avram Avinu cried. When Yaakov thought Yosef was dead, it says, Vayefkoso Aviv. He cried over his son. When Yitzchak realized that he had given the brachas not to the different son, not to the son that he intended to, so he was traumatized. Perhaps the difference between us and them is what they did with the emotions. But having emotions and being emotional is not a sign of weakness. And being stoic is not, unless it's your nature, which some people have that nature, unless it's your nature, it's not necessarily a sign of strength. It's facing what's painful, it's facing our losses, it's facing the hardships that we're going through or have been through, and going ahead with life anyway, which is a sign of strength. I remember a number of years ago, I was helping a woman who experienced a terrible tragedy, a very sudden death of a young child. And she called me, it was literally during the Shloshim, during the first 30 days. And she said to me, Dr. Blumenthal, I'm so weak. Like she said, in fact, she went to a department so she could barely push the rotating door. And I said to her, that's because you're strong. And she looked confused and she said to me, what do you mean? So I gave her a mashal, I gave her a parable. Imagine the strongest man in the world. Let's imagine it's some sort of Olympic weightlifter, and he's about to break the world's record in weightlifting. He's about to bench press, 400 pounds, I don't even know what it is. And he's lifting the thing, and he's sweating, and he's all red, and his veins are popping, and he's out of breath, and he's huffing and puffing, and with his last iota of strength, he lifts the thing, throws it on the floor, and collapses from exhaustion. Is he strong or is he weak? You're facing something devastating. You're facing something that would take the breath away from anyone, but you're dealing with it and you're facing it. And therefore, your exhaustion is really a sign of strength. So let's remember what strength is. And strength is facing the enormity of the hardships we've been through, facing the enormity of the losses, whether, of course, if it's a loved one, but even losses of stamina, losses of jobs, losses of connections, losses of milestones that many of our young people have missed. Face them, feel the pain, and proceed and go forth nonetheless. The other expression which I think we have to reconsider is getting over it. People will say, well, we just get over it, as if these kind of losses and hardships were just nominal. We get over an amount of snow. Maybe we get over a minor financial setback, a disappointment. But the type of experience that people have had this past year is not something you just get over. And it trivializes. and sort of cheapens the hardship that people have faced. So what actually does happen? What do we do with the losses and the difficulties we had this year? And what we do is we face them, we acknowledge the pain, we integrate the experience, and then we grow from them. We take them and learn lessons from them. We proceed through life. We change ourselves. And that's in essence what, if I can summarize very quickly, what grief and trauma is. Grief and trauma are experiences that change us. We emerge from them, different people. We grow through pain. That's human nature. No better proof than in the Jewish calendar. The day most associated with pain, Yom Kippur, is a day of Inui Nefesh, where we put ourselves in pain. So from the hardships and difficulties that we face, we digest them, we take them in, we make them part of ourselves, and we emerge from them wiser and better people, people with a better perspective. And that's what we're going to be accomplishing. And probably as this pandemic, God willing, subsides, as we find cures and we develop, the government and scientists develop vaccinations, we're going to take this year and this experience with us and become better people. There's a famous story was told about the Brisker Rav Velvel Soloveitchik from Zechrono Livracha, from Jerusalem, who had lost a number of children during the Holocaust, and he mourned them for his entire life. And someone who was cognizant of his mourning for his children said to him, Rabbi, don't you have emunah and bedachon? Don't you have faith? Don't you believe that whatever God does is good? Why are you continuing to mourn? And he quoted the famous Mishna in Psachim. He said to him, Bala marar eina yotze. The Mishna says that, imagine during the Seder, which we're coming to in a few weeks, just a few weeks away. Imagine during the Seder, if you took the matzah and you threw it down your throat and you didn't taste it. Would you fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah? And the Mishnah says yes. If you swallow matzah without chewing it and tasting it, it's maybe not the ideal way, but you'd fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. But bala marar eina yotze. But if you take the maror, the bitter herb, to remind us of the hardships of the slavery in Egypt, and just sort of throw it down your throat without tasting it, without letting it absorb, without absorbing its bitterness, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah of maror. And here we are, or we will be, at the Seder. We're going to celebrate the greatest redemption in world history. But to do that, we have to taste the bitterness that we were in. We have to be cognizant of that. And I don't think we have to look much further than, for me, one generation ago, for some of you more than one generation ago, to our leaders during the post-Holocaust era. Well, it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Satmar Rav, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, well, it was Moshe Feinstein, Rav Aaron Kotler, well, it was Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, all of whom in their respective communities came to America, saw the world that they had known and cherished completely destroyed, and rebuilt. And built, if you will, spearheaded the greatest growth we've ever had in Jewish history. They took the maror, they digested it, and they brought from that some great redemption and great growth. And God willing, we should have the opportunity, obviously at a lower scale, a smaller scale, to do that with these very difficult times that we have been living through during the past year. Thank you for listening.